Okay, well, Sokeel and Professor Shin highlighted the potential and reality of North Korean refugees to make a global impact. And I've been involved in that work for 12 years, so I was cheering as I read their paper, the kind of progress that North Korean refugees have made. Now, as a discussant, I have 3 points and several questions. Point number 1 is, do most, many, or even a few North Korean refugees really want to be advocates? Point number 2 is advocacy, yes, is great and important, but let's make sure that it is authentic and that North Korean refugees maintain their autonomy. Point number 3, there are limitations to advocacy, and I think we should talk about that along the way so that not everything is great. Just face the reality. Now, point number 1, do most, many, or even a few North Korean refugees want to be advocates? Now, I'm going to base this on about 600 North Korean refugees who studied in our organization over the last 11 years, the things that we've heard from them. And these are people from the USA, UK, Canada, Japan, and of course, South Korea, maybe a couple of other countries. Now, do they really want to be advocates? Well, the first question I want to ask is, why do North Korean refugees learn English? Now, it might just seem strange they're in South Korea, but some of them really do desire to learn English. Actually, almost, many of them actually. We found there are 5 main reasons. Number 1, because of education purposes, they need English. Number 2, some of them are some of the role models, musicians, artists, doctors, nurses, who have made it. But because of English levels increasing in South Korea, that a lot of them have fallen behind, or they are not able to access opportunities that other professionals are able to access. Third, they are employers or employees, and they have to interact with the world, deal with contracts, have meetings in English. Number 4, independence and confidence building. So this is personal for them that, you know, they've escaped from North Korea, they want to meet people from around the world, but they can't communicate without an interpreter. And then number 5 is public speaking. Now, public speaking is the main thing that we focus on, and some people might think, aha, there's where the advocacy is, but it's not quite true. Because why do North Korean refugees engage in public speaking? And again, we've heard 5 main reasons from them. Number 1 is raise awareness. They want people to know what's happening in North Korea. Number 2 is advocacy. They want something done about North Korea, and it's the kind of thing that we're talking about today. So it's one of the 5 factors. Number 3, storytelling about others. So for example, we had an English speech contest with 6 North Korean refugees. 2 of them were men. The topic was the lives of North Korean women. Why were there 2 men at a contest about the lives of North Korean women? Because they wanted to talk about what happened to their sisters and their mothers. Okay? So in some cases, it's storytelling, healing hearts, and overcoming trauma. And number 5 is self-confidence and finding their identity. So you don't find much in terms of advocacy in the reasons that North Korean refugees tell us that they want to engage in public speaking. But how can we connect the desires of North Korean refugees, the reality of what they really want, with the desire to have them as public advocates and as advocates about North Korea? So point number 2 is advocacy, but respect their autonomy and authenticity. So North Korean refugees have reasons for learning English and for speaking out, but mainly for personal reasons. Okay, not advocacy. Now, I warn against trying to recruit them because what we've found is that it's better when they're ready. So we don't do any public recruitment of North Korean refugees, but they still find us. And that's because we're doing something that when they learn about us, when they meet us, they see that we are concerned with making sure that they tell their stories or speak out in their own way, not in the way that we want. So, but there is optimism. So why do some North Korean refugees go from refugees, focus on their own lives and situations, to becoming advocates, talking about North Korea or even talk about political issues? One main reason is that they get to live in freedom. They're able to read books, go online, talk with people from around the world. So they're able to actually think for themselves for the first time. And some of them do start to develop some negative feelings about North Korea, not just what happened to them in their hometowns, but that they have a better understanding of the system and the way that they were being oppressed when they were there. And I think another thing that the challenge that those of us who are in this field might have sometimes is just be patient. Some of them are not ready to speak out in the beginning. Some of them are really boring when they first arrive. Reporters and others really want to meet the new arrivals, but in many cases, they don't have anything to say. They're just trying to adjust to living outside of North Korea. So we need to give them time. That if they're going to develop as advocates, it will happen. Okay? But if we are rushing them to the stage, trying to get them to speak out, then they probably won't be very effective advocates. Okay? Now, I always like to point out my co-author, okay? Song-Mi Han. In her case, she escaped in 2011, and it was 9 years before she even began to speak out after she joined our organization. Now she's an author, public speaker, but in the past, she didn't know anything about North Korea because she had lived in the countryside. But now she's an author, speaker, and encourages other North Korean refugees to speak out. And others say that they are inspired when they see her story. Now, how many North Korean refugees have published books in English? Anybody like to guess? Okay, about 30. Okay, so about 34,000 have escaped to South Korea, escaped to other countries also, but only about 30 North Korean refugees have published books. But it takes them 11 years on average before they publish a book. Okay? So it's not something that happens overnight. Some of them need time to adjust. Some of them need time to learn about North Korea. Some need to learn how to analyze in a more effective way. So it takes time for them. So Sokeel says it might be the last generation, but I think it's okay. And when I say that, because there are about 34,000 who are here, some of them are still developing. We still have North Korean refugees coming to us who arrived 7, 8, 10 years ago. But finally, after settling down, they're ready to speak out. Okay? Now, I know people are looking for newcomers, but one thing that's puzzling to me is why isn't there more of an effort to work with those who have already escaped and shown some initiative? Some who are already speakers. Of course, some of them who've already published books. As I said, about 30 in English, but there are even more published in Korean. But it's almost like, I mean, we're looking for someone new, you know? So you publish a book, fantastic. You give speeches, that's fantastic, but we're still looking for somebody new, okay? And then the final thing that I'll say is about the limitations of advocacy. So I support it. I mean, I think it's great, but I think it is also important for us to be honest. And I'd like everyone to think about what is the impact of NGOs, churches, government, academics, reporters, and lots of other people trying to get at the North Korean refugees, saying we want you to speak out, but we want you to talk about this, we want you to talk about that. How do we create space so that they can develop, but develop in their own voice and authenticity? And we even examine what we do internally. So we've now had we've had 20 speech contests featuring North Korean refugees, about 150 speeches. The first 10 years, we will try to come up with, the first 10 speech contests, we try to come up with a theme for each contest. And what we found is that the refugees are trying to fit their stories within the theme of the contest. The 11th contest, we renamed it I Am from North Korea. Then it was wide open for them. And we started to get even more of a variety and diversity of topics discussed by the North Korean refugees when they were free to examine and analyze and think about what kind of speech that they want to give on their own without being pushed by anybody or pushed into a certain direction. So this year we've had more than 100 speech events with North Korean refugees around the world. Okay? We've had events in 11 different countries around the world with North Korean refugees giving speeches in English. So we're helping to help them get prepared for those opportunities without telling them what to say. So the main thing is, how do we connect the interest that they have in terms of learning English, in terms of the reasons that they want to speak out, so that it matches with the interest that we have, but without pushing them in any particular direction and keeping the speeches as authentic as possible.
That's all. Thank you.